The fourth seal. I'm going to read the fourth seal. The fourth seal, it says, there was a pale horse. The name of him that sat on him was Death. Hell followed him, and power was given to death and hell, that they had power over. Wait. It says, and power was given to them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the field. Okay. Fourth seal. All hell breaks loose. That's what the fourth seal is. All hell breaks loose. And it seems to me like this past summer, all hell broke loose. God kept giving me this date, 7/7, 7/7, 7/7, July 7th. He gave it to me back in March. And I was like, that's like 3 days after my birthday. That's 4 days after my birthday. Jesus, what's finna happen? 7/7, 7/7, 7/7. The fourth seal. So what the fourth seal is, death and hell breaks loose. And it was put to me in simple terms, all hell breaks loose. Okay. So all hell is going to break loose, right? It says death and hell will be given power over the death of 1/4 of the earth. As of July 16th, 2023, just this year, about 7-8 days after July 7th, worldometer.info, it's a website that tracks, it's a very interesting website. It tracks the birth rate, the death rate, and the entire population of the earth. As of then, as of July 16th, the earth's population was 8.1 billion people. That means that death and hell, when the fourth seal opens, will be given power over 2 billion people to kill them. This is terrifying. And it says that it was given power unto them to kill 1/4 of the earth with 4 things: sword, hunger, death, and beasts of the field. Now, the funny thing is as you look at these 4 things that are allowed to come on the earth at the bequest of death and hell, the first thing, sword, that's second seal all day. The second thing, hunger, that's third seal all day. The third thing is pestilence and sickness. A lot of people will say, well, that could have been 2020 and COVID. Not if COVID was man-made. But it's being staged now. We're seeing malaria and leprosy in Florida. We're seeing the rise of the Eris COVID variant, which is actually putting people in hospitals. It's not as impactful as Omicron or the original variant, but it's still on the rise. And there's actually something I just read that, WHO and a couple other of these World Health Organizations are staging themselves for, what does he say? Disease X? What? Why? And people went right back to being nasty. Not washing their hands, not wearing masks, breathe. The same thing that caused it to balloon. They didn't learn their lesson. Warning always come before destruction with the Bible. And a lot of these things were foreshadowed before they happened. But do you think we learned our lesson? So here we have with the fourth seal, 2 billion people on the earth will be killed by death and hell. This is what it says. All hell breaks loose, and 2 billion people will be killed by 4 things: sword, hunger, death, and beasts of the field. So, I looked up beasts of the earth, and that word is therion, Greek for therion, wild animals, beasts, fiendish snakes, wild beasts, inclusive of sea, which includes alligators, sharks, whales, things like that. Do you not know that there has been a uptick of death by animal? Like, how random is that? That it's trending that, there's been goring by bisons, animal attacks, dog attacks, um, all kinds of things. Moose attack. Moose? A moose? Are you serious? What? Shark attacks. And just this year, a phenomenon that scientists have never seen, oceanographers, whales have been attacking people. They've been trying to make their boats capsize. It's like, what is now? It's the thing about probability and prophecy is that the one thing that the Bible even says about prophecy is you call a false prophet by the fact that the prophecies don't come true. The one thing that I got a problem with the Bible and people that say that the Bible ain't true, yeah, I guess it ain't my problem with the Bible. It's the problem with the people that say that it's not true is that these prophecies are verifiably given over about 2,000 years ago. The probability that these things would happen in the exact same order and that it would show the compounding effect of each one of these things continuing as each seal is opened, that is impossible. It is impossible for these things to actually come true if what? If they weren't true. How out of any possible way that 2 billion people out of the earth could die, why would you choose these four things? And why are these four things actually coming true? Let's examine them. The sword, which is the first thing they said that death and hell. Now, I just want to let me put a bookmark there where sword is. Let me say this. It said that death came in on a pale horse, but death is the only horseman that actually had someone come in with him. And the someone or the something that came in with him was hell. He said hell followed behind him. Two things that you know about hell. It's hot. Now, I ain't never been to hell. A lot of people say they've been to hell. But we know it's hot, and we know it's fire associated with it. As Maui was burning this week, I kept saying, I said, God, this is real first trumpetish, God. Because you said you was going to fling something on the earth and it was going to tear up 1/3 of all the trees and the grass and everything green. I said, but this can't be the first trumpet. It can't be the first trumpet. It just can't be. In my spirit, I was like, he said, go back and look at the seals again. And just this week, he had me look at the fourth seal. And I got to go back into the book and I got to make this update. But he had me look at the fourth seal and it said hell followed behind it. The one thing, the consensus and the buzzword of every survivor in Maui was apocalyptic. Now, that in and of itself didn't really make me say, oh, that was the fourth seal. No, no, no. What made me look at the fourth seal was 7/7, July 7th, the day that God had gave me back in March, because that day is recorded as, but I'm sure it's changed, but at that time, the hottest day of the year so far. Not only the hottest day of the year so far, the hottest day of history. When I went back and I looked even today, those days was recorded between um, July 5th, 6th, and 7th. The hottest days in history. Then it went back down quietly. If this, and I say if, because I'm wise enough and theologian enough and studious enough to know that when you're working with seals and you're working with the prophetic, it's very fine-tuned things that appear that you got to be tuned into. And when I saw that that was the hottest day in history, that's what got my attention. But then the wildfires, I got pictures and screenshots of Hawaii on fire at night that are absolutely some of the testimonies that people have said about having visions of hell. That very thing. I forgot her name, Baxter, but Marie Baxter or something. She wrote a book back in the late 90s, early 2000s called A Divine Revelation of Hell. And she described one of the scenes in Maui at night. I saw that when I was reading that book back in 1997. I saw that. And when they showed those descriptions of Maui on fire, now someone said, oh, that's God's judgment on Maui. I think it's a little bit bigger than that. I think that It's always got to be. And once again, when I talked about something crazy happening on the first year of every Shemitah cycle. This year, between 2022 and 2023, September 25th, 22, September 25th, 23, Shemitah cycle, first year of the Shemitah. Crazy stuff is going to happen. We've already seen it, and we got about a month left to see what's going to happen. And I'm mighty afraid because the top of September be really hot for this kind of stuff. And we're up here looking at this inflation and they're talking about it's going to be a depression. I mean, a recession, I think it could literally be a depression because of one of the indicators that came out earlier was what? People have pulled back on their everyday spending. They haven't done that since the Great Depression. And that's why people are very scared that this soft landing is going to be a hole in the ground. It's going to be way more than a soft landing. And so, with that portion showing itself, the heat, the flames, I immediately was like, hell followed with death. We are about to see a death toll in Maui that is going to astonish the world. I believe it. I believe it. And I believe that the death tolls in these subsequent disasters are going to be unprecedented because I think that the fourth seal opened up this summer. I think the fourth seal opened up about a month ago. Literally. I mean, I think so. And it is where the Bible says death and hell has power over one fourth of the earth. Now, there's always going to be a beginning to things, and there's always going to be there's always going to be opening ceremonies, but it's going to continue. So you got sword, second seal. That's going to be a lot of war. That's going to be a lot of the second seal magnified and turned on its ear. So whatever war and hatred you see people just like this guy just yesterday, kid walking on the street with his family down south in Tennessee, I believe, and got killed because a driver didn't see them walking in the street. They were actually walking home because their car ran out of gas. You know, common thing. They didn't have enough gas to get home because the third seal doing what it's doing. Hit the 17-year-old, killed him. He pulls over to offer resuscitation and help. He's a government guy, and the father kills him out of his heartbreak. He kills the guy who killed his son. There's so many these red light runners that's just running red lights, taking people's lives. This is the beginning. Yeah, it got tied to the second seal and love waxing cold and hatred coming on the earth. But remember, they're going to intensify. So those going ons is going to continue to happen. In the fourth seal turned on its ear. You better pray. Every time, I don't even like leaving my house no more. I don't like driving in the city no more. And I don't do it unless I have to. And every time I leave from here, I said, Lord, let me come back in peace and in one piece. And when I come back to my house, I thank him for letting me come back in peace and in one piece and finding my house in peace and in one piece. Because guess what? It's nothing is guaranteed. And none of our finances can cover it. None of our resources are able. Having the government want first seal deception still going on. The very stories that's coming out of Maui about all the supplies that they're bringing and they're flooding Maui with all this support and these resources, and they're showing it. They're showing it how these people, that's what social media, I'm so glad for social media because the truth is coming out. Even if it come out for that one stream, it's still coming out. That these people aren't, this FEMA operating under the color of what? You know, they're doing what their agenda is deeming them to do. The other thing that came out about Maui is that just at the top of this year, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, that they were talking about redeveloping Maui, but the people in Maui was opposing them. That's just suspect all by itself. Them people over there is devastated. They're finding people huddled together in their home around each other, burnt up, in cars, huddled, burnt up. And what came to me is some of them people have never hugged each other except for in their death. This is real and this is coming on this earth. And this is part of the fourth seal. Death on a when that one girl, she was driving in the car and she said, not like this. Not like this. It was literal hell all around them. And guess what? And they had the means to videotape it, to show it to the world, to let it be known that this is the apocalypse is happening on an island surrounded by water. What does that sound like? That sounds like Elijah when he called down water, when he called down fire on the altar in front of all those other gods, in front of all those false prophets. And he said, let the God who be God answer by fire. I don't think that Maui was on in judgment. Who knows? One of the reports that came out of Maui was they were putting out fires that Monday. And they actually went home because they were done. But then later on, I heard that the water ran out for the firemen. I said, how you on the ocean and the water run out? What does salt water do to fires? Does it exacerbate it? I don't know. Lake Michigan is the largest freshwater source in the world. That's all I know. But you live on an island surrounded by water. People, as they were jumping in the water, they were catching on fire. Boats 50 yards out were catching on fire. What kind of flame do that? Hell. Now let's talk about the convergence. Just so happens that a hurricane that never hit the island is blowing off the west side of Maui, creating 75-mile-per-hour winds. And the fire itself was going across houses in less than 4 minutes, consuming it and the people. It took down the power lines first. There was no means to communicate them because this thing happened in a very specific, terrifying order. First, the winds came. When the winds came, it kicked out the power communications. The communication infrastructure got knocked out. After the communication infrastructure got knocked out, whatever was the spark that was blowing in the wind took over. I don't care what no one say. People's over there, we should have had warning. Absolutely, you should have had warning. But for some reason, those set of circumstances refused and dictated that y'all not only was not getting a warning, there wasn't nothing that anybody could do if y'all got a warning. Them people would have, look, the warning would have probably came and the flames would probably been at their door. And see, people saying, "Oh, that's judgment on Maui." Well, it might have just been the opening ceremonies of the fourth seal. Part of that entire thing is coming on the earth. And for them to go on and say, we've only, as of Friday, we've only searched 3% of the burn zone. And in that 3% of the burn zone, we found 89 bodies. This is when the count was at 89. He said, you do the math. They said over 1,000 people are missing. Can you imagine if 1,100 people died in that fire? Probably so. Probably have. Probably more. 150,000 died in the top of the year in the Syria earthquake. The death on unprecedented levels. 2 billion people. The Bible says very clear when the fourth seal opens, death is entering in this earth and hell is going to follow with it. And if hell is following with it, you better expect some flames and some hotness. These are the hottest days. Climate change? Maybe, just maybe, it's the fourth seal. Hunger was going to be the next thing. This is the third seal continuing. So now you're going to have, look, and if you broke up 2 billion people into these four things, that means 500 million people approximately each are going to die from one of these things. So 500 million people are going to die from war and things like that. 500 million people going to die from hunger and all of that. 500 million people going to die from death, pestilence, illness, natural disaster. 500 million people. This is what you want to watch and how you want to know that this is really God, because this is crazy. 500 million people dying from beasts of the earth. Now, the other thing that he gave me is not only that it may be animal attacks, but what about the food that we consume? And one of the biggest food sources we have are beasts of the earth: deer meat, bison meat, chicken, beef, all of that stuff. And people, that's just the stuff that oink, moo, and cluck. And they eat the stuff that do more than that. This is how death and hell is going to have their power on earth. This is the fourth seal. The fourth seal culminating and bringing together all the seals. These are the beginning of sorrow.